I am 27 and the black sheep of my billionaire family. 3 years ago, I walked away with nothing. I just secured my future without them. And the ending of that meeting, I still can't process it. This is a throwaway account. I don't know why I'm writing this. I can't sleep, and my phone won't stop buzzing. This morning, I signed papers that guaranteed I will never need a single cent from my family again. But the conversation that followed, it's completely destroyed any joy I thought I would feel. For those of you who read my deleted post about 3 years ago, I'm the guy who walked away from a literal family fortune because I was, to quote my own father, a waste of resources. I told you I was going to try to make it on my own. This is the timeline of what actually happened. It isn't a fairy tale. The gold-plated cage first. I need to frame my background. My father is the architect, not of buildings, but of companies. He buys struggling legacy brands, cuts the fat, meaning people, and flips them for billions. He's brilliant, efficient, and utterly devoid of empathy. My mother was his perfect accessory, beautiful, poised, and equally cold. I am their eldest son. My brother Xavier is 2 years younger. We are a legacy family. My father's grandfather pioneered the approach. To my father, family isn't a bond. It's a strategic alliance. Your worth is determined solely by your net worth, your potential ROI, and your ability to bring status to the family name. My early life was, visually, a masterpiece. Tutors, elite prep schools, horses, summers on the private island. I was never beaten. I was never starved. But I was, without a doubt, a ghost in my own home. I remember when I was 8, I had a severe fever, the staff was frantic, I was delirious. I later learned my father was in the middle of a massive acquisition in Tokyo. He was told, but his logic was, he has the best doctors. I am not a doctor. I will achieve more by finalizing this merger than by standing in a room. He will recover, and my work will provide him a secure future. His work did provide me a secure future, but it also ensured I was a complete stranger to him. I was a problem to be solved with money. My brother Xavier was different. He was cut from the same strategic cloth. He excelled at the cutthroat social dynamic my father loved. By 14, he was analyzing market trends for fun. By 16, my father was bringing him into preliminary board meetings. I, however, wanted to build things, not sell them. I was obsessed with renewable materials. When my father was in Paris for a merger, I was the nerd reading about bioplastics made from algae. I got into a top-tier engineering program on my own merit. My father's only reaction was, "Engineering is for laborers. I pay laborers. My sons are CEOs. You will switch your major to economics at Wharton." I refused. For the first time. I told him this was my passion. He looked at me with this utter dismissal. "We spend millions maintaining your lifestyle, $300,000 a year on your schools. And this is your gratitude? To be a technician? You are, as I thought, a waste of resources." He didn't scream. He never screamed. He just stated a fact, like saying, "The price of steel is up." From that moment on, I was done. My trust was frozen. I continued my degree, but I was now an observer. My family talked past me, rarely to me. Our Christmas dinners were strategic meetings with a turkey. Xavier was the golden child. I was the cautionary tale. The breaking point was my graduation. I was top of my class. I had a startup plan already drafted. The idea was to create carbon-negative construction materials from industrial waste. It wasn't sexy, but it was solid, scalable, and crucial. We were at a celebratory dinner my father organized. He hadn't actually attended my graduation ceremony, citing last-minute due diligence. But he was here for the dinner, where he announced that Xavier had just finalized his first property acquisition at age 20. The entire table clapped. I then said, "And I've just been accepted into a PhD program for my material science research." Silence. My father put down his fork. "A PhD? You plan to spend more years as an academic dependent?" "It's the required step for my research and the company I intend to build," I said. He actually chuckled. A cold, dry sound. "Passion projects are for people who don't have an empire to run. We have no resources for a glorified science experiment. We have provided you the path, and you choose to take the laborer's detour. You are a waste of resources. Do as you will, but I am done funding your detours." I left that dinner. I packed one bag. I had about $1,200 in a personal account, a gift from an old aunt who saw me. I walked away from an inheritance worth more than most small countries. I left the gold-plated cage. I was 24. The basement and the bio-waste. My old Reddit post was written from a public library. I spent the next 6 months living in a mold-infested basement apartment. I was an elite engineer who had never used a laundromat. The shock was extreme. To call the next 3 years a hero's journey is a joke. It was 3 years of perpetual humiliation, debt, and the deep abiding belief that maybe my father was right. I applied to every grant, every accelerator, every VC firm. Rejection, always rejection. Your science is sound, but we don't see the market path. Or, this is too long-term for our portfolio. Or, my favorite, this doesn't align with our focus on consumer tech. The first year, I was surviving on ramen and odd lab assistant jobs. I was developing the material, which I named algacrete, in my apartment's bathtub. The smell of rotting algae and industrial chemicals was my only company. My family? I was completely dead to them. No calls, no texts. Not even a passive-aggressive, "we told you so." They simply excised the failed product from their line. By the second year, I had a functional prototype. Algacrete was stronger, lighter, and truly carbon negative. It was the material I knew the world needed, but I needed a commercial partner, a massive pilot program. I targeted the biggest infrastructure companies. I sent hundreds of cold pitch decks. I was ignored or given polite, not interested letters. I was an engineer with no business track record. I almost broke, twice. The first time was when I had to sell my old tutor's watch just to pay the rent. The second time was watching an interview with Xavier about his newest investment, with my father in the front row, looking at him with pride. That look was never for me, not once. And then the break happened. I had pitched a regional builder in Germany who specialized in green infrastructure. Their CEO was also an engineer. He saw my deck. He was skeptical, but he agreed to a virtual meeting. I must have looked terrible, gaunt, exhausted, pitching from my cramped basement office. But the science worked. He sent a technician to verify. A month later, we signed a pilot deal. The pilot was small, 1 green roof and 1 retaining wall. We installed it a year ago. It outperformed traditional concrete in every metric. The carbon capture data was undeniable. We published. Suddenly, the rejections turned into inquiries. The main construction companies were now looking for a way to meet new green mandates. We were the solution. We needed to scale. I needed a manufacturing facility, staff, distribution. I needed real capital. I wasn't looking for a seed round anymore. I was looking for a partner. This leads me to the past few months. I had interest from 3 major private equity groups. They saw the value. They saw the market demand. It was no longer a science experiment. We were in final negotiations with the largest of the 3 firms, Terra Nova Capital. They were valuing algacrete, my biocement made in a tub, at a staggering amount. I was negotiating the distribution deal with the original German builder simultaneously. I needed both. My lead negotiator, an amazing woman I hired, had a relationship with the German group. She told me we had a final meeting scheduled. Both Terra Nova and the German builder wanted to be at the table to finalize the 3-way agreement. This morning, that meeting took place. The final boardroom and the update. The meeting was in a top-floor boardroom in Munich. The German builder's team was there. The Terra Nova lead partner was present. The terms were brutal but fair. They were giving me a massive cash injection, a state-of-the-art facility, and a guaranteed distribution network. In exchange, I gave up a significant chunk of equity, but I retained majority control. I signed. The other 2 groups signed. It was done. I, the waste of resources, had built a globally scalable solution and secured my entire future. I didn't feel anything. No joy, no relief. I just felt this deep, tired hollowness. I was 27, and I felt 70. As we were shaking hands, the door to the boardroom opened. The German CEO stood up. "Apologies for the interruption, but our primary investor wished to personally congratulate our newest partner," he said. A man walked in, tall, graying temples, perfectly tailored suit. A man who analyzed people the way other people read ingredients on a box. My father, my brain completely stopped. Terra Nova and the German builders team were all smiling at him. They clearly knew him. The German CEO introduced him. This is our senior advisor and the single largest investor in our green portfolio, of which Terra Nova is a key holding. My father, it turns out, owned the firm that was about to own part of my company. My entire success story, my years of suffering, my battle against rejection, it was just an elaborate performance inside his machine. He had seen Algocrete early on, probably through some industrial intelligence. He recognized the value, not the passion, but the value. He had directed his capital through these shells to ensure that when I finally succeeded, it was still under his control. He didn't acknowledge our shared DNA in front of the board. He was too efficient for that. He just shook my hand. The same handshake he gave to CEOs he just acquired. He looked me in the eye. That same flat strategic gaze I grew up with, but this time it was different. It wasn't dismissal. It was confirmation. Algocrete is an efficient use of resources. This is a sound strategic alliance, a standard you have finally met. This distribution model ensures a 30% increase in market penetration, he said, speaking to the room, but his eyes were on me. He then added, "You should be pleased. This approach to industrial-scale biomaterials creates a secure future. We have providing a clear strategic path forward. We have provided strategic alliance." He didn't see my 3 years of struggle. He saw an asset that had finally matured into profitability. My rebellion wasn't a choice. To him, it was just the necessary R&D phase of his new holding. He had funded my detour by letting me starve, ensuring I was gritty enough to build the company he could then integrate into his ecosystem. The board clapped. The German builder clapped. They saw a great strategic alliance finalized by a respected industry titan. I don't know what I did. I must have smiled. I must have nodded. I think I said, "Thank you, it's an honor." I went back to my hotel room. I haven't moved from this bed. I am rich beyond my wildest dreams. I have changed the world, and I feel like the most enslaved person on the planet. My family wins, always. They don't respect you. They just wait until your passion is efficient enough to be acquired. Update, 12 hours later. He didn't win. My phone is exploding. I didn't mean to post that, but I was so broken I just hit send. I was sitting in that boardroom, trapped. My father was holding my hand. His other hand was patting the shoulder of the Terra Nova partner. He was performing. He was presenting the story of the father who provided the path for his industrious son. The narrative was perfect. He was absorbing my story and making it about his wisdom. The German CEO said, "This strategic alliance, this family connection, it's truly the perfect outcome." My father smiled, that perfect accessory smile my mother used to have. He looked at me and said, to the room, "A family legacy secured. Efficiency and strategic planning always provide a secure future." In that moment, the hollowness I felt didn't turn to anger. It turned into complete, profound clarity. I looked at this man who had let me starve. I looked at the contract I just signed, and I realized he doesn't know. He doesn't know what I gave up. He doesn't know what it's like to build something from a moldy bathtub. He doesn't know me. He only knows the product. I stood up. I let go of his hand. "A secure future," I said. "You are very efficient at securing those, aren't you? Always ensuring resources aren't wasted." The room was silent. "But this alliance isn't with you," I said to the German builder. "I admire your engineering, and it's not with Terra Nova's resources. They are vast, but I have built this. My mistake was thinking the success needed to validate the suffering. My mistake was thinking I needed my family's strategy." I then looked at my father. My old Aunt Clara who left me that money, she said, "Do what you will, but do not do it to win the battle of a dead general." She was right. I am a waste of resources to you, but your resources are waste to me. I am not your strategic asset, I continued. This material, this glorified science experiment, wasn't built on your strategic path. It was built by a person you excised. If you cannot see the person, you cannot truly access the product. You didn't provide the path to this success. I did. I then looked at the contracts on the table. The legal reality is that he controls the capital, but I control the board. I control the technology. I won't be acquired by your narrative, I said. If you cannot understand the value of the person, you do not deserve the value of the product. The deal stands, But this strategic alliance will be run by my board, my strategy, and my purpose. Your capital is just a laborer I pay for my detour. I walked out of that boardroom again. I didn't take my phone. I didn't take my coat. I just walked. I'm in my basement apartment again. The smell of algae is gone. It feels clean. It feels safe. My lawyers are in damage control. They are terrified. They say I just started a war. Terra Nova wants a new agreement. The German builder is confused. My father hasn't made a single statement. Xavier texted, "WTF have you done?" I destroyed the story. I broke his perfect strategic closure. He didn't win. He doesn't get to consume my achievement. I don't know what happens next. The future is uncertain. The battle has just begun. But I'm not a ghost in a gold-plated cage anymore. I am not an efficient resource. I am a person. And for the first time in my life, I truly have a secure future. One I built myself. And it's going to be on my terms, or not at all. That last update was written months ago, during the worst of the fallout. I can tell you that the path to a secure future on my own terms has been a brutal, relentless war. I did achieve my goals, but the price and the final, unexpected ending was nothing I could have anticipated. Here is the conclusion of what happened. The real war, months 30 to 36. The lawyers weren't wrong. When I walked out of that boardroom in Munich and told my father his capital was just a laborer I paid, I initiated a zero-sum conflict. I had major equity funding and a distribution deal, but my father was the primary investor in the German firm, and Terra Nova was effectively a subsidiary of his primary holding company. I was trying to run a majority-owned board while my partners were legal attack dogs for my family. For the first 4 months, the legal attacks were designed to starve me. They invoked every covenant, every clause. They audited my books daily. They challenged my pilot data. They slow-walked the construction of the manufacturing facility. They made it impossible for me to access the cash we had secured. I spent 18 hours a day, every day fighting. I was a scientist and engineer who had to become a brutal litigation specialist to survive. My only weapons were my majority control of the board, barely, and the patents. But I realized their strategy wasn't to win legally. It was to bleed my personal funds dry in legal costs until I had to capitulate to the structure they wanted. I had to get creative. I took my story public. I leaked the reality of the deal to a few journalists who cover green infrastructure. I framed it not as a family squabble, but as a hostile takeover of vital green technology by efficient capital that sought only to slow it down and control it. The public pressure works on firms like Terra Nova. They had green commitments to meet, and actively destroying a viable technology was bad PR. They had to back down from the visible legal attacks. But my father, he just switched to a different form of efficiency, the unexpected outcome. 6 months ago, the manufacturing facility was finally completed. Algacrete was in commercial production. The distribution network was robust. We were hitting our targets. I went back to that boardroom in Munich to finalize the commercial launch metrics. The meeting was the opposite of the first one, polite, corporate, and entirely defined by metrics. My partners gave me reports detailing the scale-up I had built. I had done it, on my own, using their money as the laborer. The CEO of the German firm said, "The growth is unprecedented. This strategic structure is extremely effective." I stood up to leave. I had achieved my goals. My story was real. My future was secure. As I was packing my bag, the CEO handed me a small sealed envelope. He said, "This is not formal. Your senior advisor wished to pass it to you privately." I went to my hotel room and opened it. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't a threat. It was a single, handwritten index card. On one side, it was my original startup budget, dated 4 years ago, from when I asked for funding. He had annotated it. Every single number was marked efficient. My requested overhead of 30%, marked bloat. My proposed R&D spend, marked effective. My father had actually analyzed the startup I wanted to build. He hadn't dismissed it. He had just quantified it. On the other side of the index card, he had written a new set of numbers. It was the current valuation of my company, its PE ratio, its projected return. He had marked the entire set of numbers with a single word, superior. And then he had added one final line. Validation seeking is an inefficient resource. Building a superior machine, regardless of the strategy, that is optimal. Our family legacy is strategic efficiency. Your rebellion was just a new acquisition strategy we had never deployed. The product validated the path. We provide the legacy. I am pleased. I sat on that bed, and the final unexpected ending hit me. I thought I had escaped. I thought my war was a war for autonomy, for respect as a person. I thought I was writing my own story. But to my family, there is no inside of their story. Every choice, every rebellion, every passionate science experiment, if it is successful, is simply retroactively folded back into their narrative of strategic efficiency. My suffering? It was just the necessary R&D cost of a new acquisition model. My war? Just a more complex validation process. I won the battle. I built the company. My future is secure, and I am rich. I didn't take my family's help, but I never left the machine. The unexpected ending is that the villain didn't have to change. He just reevaluated his metrics. He isn't proud of me. He is pleased by the efficiency of the asset I became. My final superior success validated his cold approach to life, not mine. The story has closure, but it's his closure, not mine. I changed the world with biocement, but I never truly escaped the strategic architecture of the gold-plated cage. I am a machine operating inside his machine, and for the rest of my life, every superior outcome I achieve will just be a validation of his perfect cold foresight.